The orbiting station Vornax base hung like a steel leviathan above a crimson gas giant, its hull alive with lights and the roar of engines from countless incoming shuttles. Inside its armored walls, the Coalition's most feared species trained to fight together, or at least to tolerate one another long enough to survive the wars beyond the stars. Every corridor echoed with metallic stomps, guttural laughter, and the clanging rhythm of 1,000 combatants testing their strength. Sergeant Major Cathal of the Jarok Dominion stood at the edge of the training deck, his forearms crossed over his chest, his scaled hide glistening under the station's harsh light. He had seen centuries of war, commanded legions across dying worlds, and broken cadets harder than steel. Yet the name on his datapad unsettled him in a way no weapon ever had. Recruit Kara Holt, species, human. The door hissed open. She stepped through with quiet poise, boots clicking softly against the alloy floor. The sound barely registered against the thudding steps of the alien recruits gathered nearby. She was smaller than all of them, shorter, leaner, unarmored except for the standard-issue fatigues that seemed too large on her frame. The eyes that met Cathal's were calm, unblinking. No fear. Just assessment. Across the line of trainees, 3 aliens broke into laughter. Tarek, a towering Gorvian whose horns scraped the ceiling grid, grinned with a mouth full of serrated teeth. That's the human? I thought they'd send a predator, not prey. His voice boomed, deep and mocking. Drez, sleek and feline, swished his tail lazily, amber eyes gleaming with amusement. Maybe they fight with words. Their mouths are small, perhaps they bite. Morn, the amphibious Kraith with translucent skin, croaked a wet chuckle that rippled through his gills. Kara didn't respond. She simply adjusted the strap of her duffel and kept walking until she stood at attention before Kael. The sergeant major's amber eyes narrowed. There was no trembling in her stance, no hesitation. He trained recruits who boasted like kings and broke within an hour. The quiet ones always made him wary. Recruit Holt, Cathal rumbled. You are aware of where you are? Yes, sir, she said, her voice level. Vornax training base, Joint Coalition Command. I'm assigned to Squad Delta 9. Her tone was clipped, military, controlled. Cathal's nostrils flared as he leaned closer, the heat of his breath washing over her face. You understand that here, human, rank means nothing. Strength decides who eats, who breathes, who lives. You prepared for that? Her gaze didn't waver. That's how we trained back home. He held her stare a moment longer before turning away. We'll see. The recruit snickered as she moved to the end of the line. Tarek whispered loud enough for all to hear. Careful, little one. Gravity here is heavier than your bones can bear. He flexed one massive arm, muscle plates shifting like slabs of stone. Drez added, if she cracks, maybe we can use her bones as practice blades. Cathal ignored them, for now. Recruits learned faster when reality taught the lesson. Orientation begins now, he barked, his deep voice cutting through the noise. You will train as one unit. Failure will not earn punishment, it will earn pain. The next hours dragged under the crushing weight of Vornax gravity. Every movement felt like wading through mud laced with iron. The aliens adjusted easily, their bodies designed for harsher worlds. Kara's breath grew shallow as sweat beaded on her brow. She refused to stop. Push-ups, sprints, weight drills, she completed each with mechanical precision. The others watched her stumble, then steady, then move faster with each cycle. By the end of the third rotation, her breathing had evened out. Morn, who had expected her to collapse, frowned as she passed him during the endurance course. Tarek muttered, impossible, under his breath. When the call for rest sounded, she sat alone on a metal bench, hands clasped loosely between her knees. Her body ached, but her eyes remained bright, alert. Across the room, Cathal watched her through the reflection in the viewing glass. He had seen recruits with raw power, but rarely that kind of control, the cold, patient endurance of a creature that refused to yield. He'd read the Coalition's files. Humans were adaptable, resilient, unpredictable. But words on a datapad meant nothing until tested in blood and heat. Tarek approached, tossing a heavy ration pack at her feet. You forgot this, human. She looked at it, then at him. No, she said, you need it more. The corner of her mouth twitched upward, a fraction of a smile. It wasn't mockery, just quiet certainty. Tarek's grin faltered for the first time. That night, as the recruits bunked in the shared quarters, the air buzzed with low conversation. Aliens spoke in their native tongues, guttural clicks and hums mixing in the dim light. Kara sat on her bunk, silently cleaning her standard-issue combat gloves, motion-efficient, practiced. Drez's voice slithered across the room. "So, human, tell us, what's Earth like? Do your kind fight with claws or clubs?" She didn't look up. "We fight with what we have." Laughter rolled through the barracks, but it sounded forced. Keothal's voice crackled through the intercom, silencing them all. "Combat evaluations begin at dawn. Sleep if you value your limbs." Lights dimmed to a dull red. One by one, the recruits drifted to uneasy rest. Kara lay back, eyes open, staring at the faint reflection of the gas giant swirling beyond the viewport. The red light pulsed across her face, glinting off the faint scar tracing her jawline, a relic of another battlefield. She reached up, brushing it absently with her thumb. In the silence, she whispered words no one else could hear. "They always laugh first." Keothal remained awake longer than he intended, reviewing the day's reports. Most recruits showed standard adaptation metrics. The humans' readings, however, told another story. By the end of the day, her vitals had stabilized to match those of species twice her mass. Her muscle output had increased by 20%. Her oxygen efficiency was nearing Jarok standards. Impossible by ordinary biological logic. He leaned back, tail flicking thoughtfully against the steel floor. He'd trained hundreds of species, but none that adapted so rapidly. The Coalition saw humanity as a curiosity, a newcomer to galactic order. Yet something in his gut, honed by decades of war, told him they had misjudged them. He closed the report and shut off the monitor, the hum of the station filling the void. Outside, the crimson gas giant swirled like a living wound across the stars. Inside its orbit, one small human recruit slept, unaware that the next dawn would mark the first ripple of something the galaxy had never seen before. Keothal rose, his shadow stretching across the darkened quarters. He muttered to himself in his native tongue, words meant for no ears but his own. "Let them mock. Tomorrow, we will see what this human truly is." And in her bunk, Kara turned once more, her eyes flickering open just long enough to catch the distant gleam of the training floor lights through the narrow viewport. They burned like twin stars reflected in her pupils, cold, steady, waiting. The night on Vornak's base was silent, but beneath that silence, tension coiled like a drawn blade. The laughter of alien warriors still lingered in the air, yet something unseen was shifting, a pressure, a reckoning on the horizon. By dawn, the mockery would end. And the galaxy would take its first step toward remembering why humans were once feared in the dark. The next dawn broke under the dull hum of Vornax's artificial sunrise, the light bleeding gold across the metallic barracks. The recruits rose to the sound of drills echoing through the corridors, thudding boots, grating armor, the bark of orders sharp as gunfire. Cahill stood at the center of the training dome, his towering form silhouetted against the harsh floodlights, waiting for the recruits to assemble. His 4 eyes swept over them with cold precision. When Kara entered, silent and alert, his gaze lingered a heartbeat longer before shifting away. "Today," he growled, his voice reverberating through the dome, "you stop pretending to be soldiers." His claws tapped the datapad in his hand. "You will fight. You will bleed. You will learn." The recruits formed lines. Metal dust rose in faint clouds beneath their feet. The air smelled of ozone and sweat. Every alien carried himself with swagger, Tarek rolling his shoulders like a war beast ready to charge, Draz twitching his tail with predatory eagerness, and Morn flexing the translucent tendons in his webbed hands. Kara stood still, her breathing calm and measured, her eyes fixed on Cahill as if reading him rather than waiting for instruction. He began the physical drills first, weighted sprints across the dome, full-body climbs on magnetic walls, reaction training under increased gravity. Kara adapted again, faster than expected. By mid-cycle, she was moving with the same rhythm as the aliens around her, her smaller frame darting between them with surgical precision. Tarek noticed. His smirk hardened into a scowl. You think matching pace makes you one of us, he snarled when she passed him during the sprint circuit. She didn't respond. She didn't even look at him. The indifference stung worse than any insult. When the drills ended, Kayathal called the unit into a half circle. His claws clicked against his chest plate as he spoke. Enough running. Let's see who can fight. The word echoed with finality. A murmur spread through the group. Live combat meant no safety fields, no dampeners. The kind of training that left bruises, and sometimes worse. Kayathal's eyes flicked through the list. Tarek, he called, his voice like stone grinding on stone. You'll take the first match. The Gorvian's grin returned, fierce and eager. Then Kayathal's next words hit the air like a pulse grenade. Against Recruit Holt. Silence. A flicker of surprise flashed through every face. Drez's ears perked. Morn blinked slowly, gills flaring with anticipation. Tarek let out a deep laugh that shook his chest. You want me to fight her? Sir, that's not a match, it's a mercy. Kayathal's gaze cut him short. Then it should be easy. Tarek grunted, stepping into the sparring ring with heavy thuds. Kara followed, unhurried. The floor sensors flickered alive beneath them, projecting a faint field of containment. Around them, the other recruits gathered, their voices rising in low, eager murmurs. Kayathal folded his arms. Begin. Tarek lunged first, his movements surprisingly fast for his size. The ground trembled under his charge. He aimed a sweeping strike meant to crush her with the back of his armored forearm. She sidestepped. Not in panic, not even in haste, just a clean, precise shift of balance. The blow cut through empty air. The Gorvian turned, snorting. Lucky step. Kara didn't answer. She moved lightly, feet steady, hands relaxed. Tarek came again, this time faster. His arm lashed out, a blur of motion. She dropped low, pivoted, and drove her elbow into the side of his knee. The impact sounded like metal cracking. Tarek roared, stumbling. Before he could recover, she rose, twisting her body into a strike that caught him across the throat with the edge of her forearm. The massive alien hit the floor with a shuddering thud. The dome went silent. The fight had lasted less than 5 seconds. Kayathal blinked once. Drez's tail froze mid-swing. Even the hum of the lights seemed to dull. Tarek groaned, trying to rise, but his limbs trembled. Kara stepped back, lowering her stance, breathing controlled. Continue, she asked quietly. Kayathal's claws flexed slowly. You'll wait, he said, his voice low but edged with something close to disbelief. Drez's voice broke the silence. She cheated. His fur bristled, and his fangs flashed. That was a trick, no species moves like that. Kayathal turned his gaze on him. Then prove it. The Velkar hesitated, but pride drove him forward. He leapt into the ring, movements fluid, predatory. His species thrived on speed and precision, it should have been an easy counter to the human's slower mass. But Kara was faster still. Drez feinted left, claws sweeping. She didn't retreat. She stepped in, pivoted on her heel, caught his wrist, and twisted. The sound of dislocation cracked across the dome. In the same motion, she kicked his legs from beneath him and drove him to the floor. His breath left him in a guttural rasp. Before he could regain his footing, she crouched beside him and murmured something too quiet for the others to hear. Drez's tail twitched once. Then he lay still, nodding faintly in acknowledgement. Morn moved next, unspoken challenge in his slitted eyes. Amphibians of his kind were known for their flexibility and regenerative stamina. But by the time he reached her, she was already moving. He struck with both arms, and she slipped between them like smoke, delivering 2 rapid blows to pressure points under his ribs. He collapsed in a heap, gasping, muscles locking in involuntary spasm. The silence that followed was heavier than gravity itself. 3 of the strongest recruits downed in seconds. No wasted motion. No brutality, just efficiency so complete it felt alien in itself. Kel stared at the human standing amid the fallen, her chest rising slowly, her eyes as calm as they had been the day she arrived. His voice came out lower than before, stripped of mockery. Recruit Holt. Sir. What was that? Earth training, she said simply. We call it close quarters adaptation. Keathal's upper right hand twitched, a rare sign of unease. He gestured for her to stand down. Enough for today. She saluted once, then stepped out of the ring. The others parted to let her pass. None spoke. Even Tarek, still kneeling, could only watch her go, his breath wheezing through his cracked throat. Keathal waited until she had left before looking down at his datapad. The entry beside her name blinked red, marked classified, Earth Defense Program, Tier 6 access only. He'd seen those markings before, once, during the last border conflict, on a weapon system humanity refused to share. The report claimed human soldiers had achieved 98% survival in impossible conditions. He had dismissed it as propaganda. Now he wasn't so sure. He turned toward the recruits still frozen around the ring. End session, he ordered. Return to quarters. No one argued. When the dome emptied, Keathal remained alone, claws drumming against his datapad. He replayed the footage. Frame by frame, the human's movements blurred, each transition perfectly balanced between instinct and calculation. She'd used Gorvian momentum against him, Velkar reflex patterns in response to Drez's stance, Kraith leverage against Morn's reach. Impossible. No single species could have mastered all that in one lifetime. Unless they had studied everyone else. His gaze lifted to the training ring. The scuffs on the floor still smoked faintly from friction. He exhaled a low growl that echoed in the empty dome. Humans, he thought, were not warriors by design, they were predators that learned from every kill. Somewhere down the hall, the faint echo of bootsteps marked Kara's departure. Slow. Even. The sound of someone who had nothing left to prove. Kale felt something new stir inside his chest, not anger, not fear, but the grudging edge of respect he reserved only for those who'd earned it. The human had arrived on Vornax as prey in their eyes. By tomorrow, that illusion would be dead. He shut off the lights and left the dome in silence, his thoughts heavy with the realization that the galaxy had just met its most dangerous recruit. And he wasn't sure any of them were ready for what came next. The mess hall on Vornax base had never been so quiet. The usual noise, laughter, jeers, the clatter of utensils, was replaced by a tension thick enough to taste. Recruits sat clustered in their own species corners, speaking in low murmurs, their glances flicking again and again toward the human sitting alone at the far end of the hall. Kara ate without hurry, every movement measured, calm. Her uniform was still marked with faint scuffs from the training ring, but her posture hadn't changed. She looked less like a victor basking in triumph and more like someone waiting for the next inevitable fight. When she lifted her gaze, the conversations died. Tarek froze mid-bite. Drez's tail flicked nervously, his usual confidence gone. Even Morn, his translucent skin still showing bruised hues beneath the surface, looked away. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. The memory of her movements, fluid, merciless, still played behind their eyes. Kael watched from the far end of the hall, arms folded. He had seen many forms of dominance in his years, arrogance, rage, cruelty. But this silence, the kind carved from awe and unease, was rarer. He hadn't expected it from a creature half their size. He studied her a long moment, then turned to leave. He had questions, and only one person who could answer them. Hours later, the door to his private office hissed open. Kara entered on command, standing at attention before his desk. The glow from the console cast sharp lines across her face, emphasizing the quiet discipline in her features. "You requested me, sir?" Keathal's voice was gravel. "Sit." She obeyed, expression unreadable. He activated the display, and footage from the combat evaluation shimmered above the table. Her form moved across the projection like a ghost, swift, efficient, untouchable. He slowed it down. Every frame showed a pattern, but none consistent enough to trace. "Explain," he said finally. Kara's eyes flicked toward the screen, then back to him. "You want technique breakdown or intent, sir?" "Both." She hesitated only briefly. "Technique, adaptive combat. We learn patterns from multiple species and apply what works in real time. Intent, neutralize threats before they escalate." Drez, tail flicking. Morn, his translucent skin pale with stress, Even the towering Tarek stood stiff, uncertain. These weren't soldiers yet, she realized. Not until they faced death. "Gear up," she ordered, her voice calm, anchoring them. "We move as we trained, 2 formations, no hesitation." They obeyed without question. Somewhere between discipline and survival, trust had taken root. Kayathal grunted, unimpressed but intrigued. "You're not just a recruit. Where did you learn this?" She didn't blink. "Earth Defense Program." He leaned forward. "That file is classified above my rank. You will clarify." Her tone didn't change. "No, sir." For a long time, the room was silent except for the low hum of the station. Kayathal's claws tapped once against the desk, then stopped. He realized what her answer meant, not defiance, but command discipline. She'd taken orders from someone with authority higher than his own. That thought unsettled him more than her fighting ability. "Very well," he said. "You may go." She stood but didn't move immediately. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" "Granted." "You think humans are unpredictable," she said. "You're right. But not because we're wild. It's because we've had to be adaptable for too long. We don't evolve for environments, we evolve for enemies." He said nothing. She saluted, turned, and left. The door hissed closed, leaving him alone with the echo of her words. Later, as the training cycle resumed, changes rippled through the recruits. They kept their distance from Kara at first, unwilling to risk humiliation. But curiosity gnawed at them. Drez, the feline warrior who had once laughed the loudest, was the first to approach her after drills. His movements were cautious, tail lowered, a rare show of humility for his kind. "You could have broken my spine that day," he said quietly. "You didn't. Why?" Kara was cleaning her gloves again, her hands steady. "You weren't trying to kill me," she replied. Draz hesitated, unsure how to answer. "Will you teach me? What you did, how you moved?" She looked up, studying him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "If you stop laughing first." From then on, others followed. Morn observed her footwork with wide, curious eyes, trying to mimic her timing. Even Tarek, still nursing a dented pride, began to train harder, his usual boasts replaced by silent determination. What began as mockery shifted into observation, then imitation. Kara didn't seem to seek leadership, but it came to her all the same. Kayathal watched this quiet transformation unfold from the sidelines. The human had done what he never managed, instilled discipline without fear, respect without demand. The recruits didn't understand her methods, but they trusted her results. He began to assign her advanced simulations under the guise of team coordination drills. Every time, her unit performed better. Every time, she surprised him. During one session, Tarek paired with her in a 2-on-2 mock assault. She moved with him, predicting his charges, using his mass as a shield. When the exercise ended, the Gorvian approached her, voice rough. "You use me like a weapon." She looked at him evenly. "You are one. You just needed direction." He snorted but didn't argue. That night, Kayathal sat alone in the observation chamber reviewing the latest reports. Every metric told the same story: faster cohesion, higher reaction efficiency, reduced casualty simulations. The data didn't lie, her influence made the team better. But what unsettled him wasn't her success, it was how she achieved it. No speeches, no dominance displays, just presence. Like gravity itself, invisible yet inescapable. His gaze drifted to the window beyond the chamber. Outside, the gas giant swirled endlessly, red storms rolling over one another like the heartbeat of the planet. He wondered what kind of world could forge something like her. He was still staring when the door opened. Draz stepped in, his feline movements muted. "Permission to speak, sir." Kayathal turned. "At ease. What is it?" "It's Holt," Draz said. "She's training the others. Not against your rules, but different. She doesn't talk much. Just shows them how to move, how to think faster. It's working. But it feels like she's preparing us for something else." "What do you mean?" The Velkar's ears twitched. "Like she's not training for this place. She's training for a war none of us have seen yet." Kael dismissed him, but the words lingered long after he'd gone. By the end of the rotation, even the command staff began to take notice. Reports filtered upward, unexpected cohesion patterns in Delta 9, anomalous tactical adaptation behavior. Kael received a direct message from High Command requesting footage of the human recruit sessions. He hesitated before sending them. Something about sharing that data felt wrong, like handing over a weapon to someone who didn't understand how dangerous it was. He watched her the next morning, standing at the edge of the training field, instructing Tarek in silent gestures. The alien moved slower this time, deliberate, measured. She corrected his stance once, then twice, until his weight distribution mirrored hers exactly. When he struck, the power was precise, devastating, clean. He grinned for the first time in days, a real grin, not mockery. Kael realized then that the human hadn't just taught them how to fight, she taught them how to think. The drills ended. As the recruits filed out, he called her name. She turned, brow faintly raised. "You've changed them," he said. She shrugged. "They changed themselves." He studied her in silence before speaking again. "I've seen warriors born from bloodlines that span centuries. You learned their patterns in a week. Why?" Her answer was simple. "Because on Earth, losing once means extinction." He wanted to ask more, but her expression stopped him. There was no pride in her words, no challenge, just truth. When she left, Kael turned toward the dark window again, his reflection merging with the storm-tossed world below. For the first time in years, he felt uncertainty. If a single human could do this within weeks, what would happen if more of them joined the coalition? Would they unite the galaxy, or terrify it into silence? As the lights dimmed and the night cycle began, the station settled into uneasy quiet. Somewhere deep in its corridors, Kara continued to train, her shadow moving through the dim light like a rhythm no one could match. Kael closed his eyes, remembering her words, "We evolve for enemies." He didn't know whether to feel admiration or dread. Perhaps both. Outside, lightning crawled across the red storms, illuminating the vast, restless planet. It looked like a wound that refused to heal, much like humanity itself. And though the recruits slept, Kael couldn't shake the feeling that something greater was building just beyond the horizon, waiting for the moment when all the laughter, all the fear, all the doubt would finally burn away. He whispered into the silence, his voice low, almost reverent. The galaxy isn't ready for her. But he knew readiness wouldn't matter. By then, it would already be too late. The emergency klaxons shattered the morning calm. Red light bathed the barracks as the intercom barked orders in 3 languages, each more urgent than the last. Kara Holt was already moving before consciousness fully returned. Combat drills had wired her instincts too deeply. Get up, get armed, find the threat. She slipped into her armor in silence, her breathing slow and measured, while around her the recruits scrambled in confusion. Kael's voice thundered through the station's command channel. "All units to defense positions. Unknown vessel breaching outer perimeter. This is not a drill." The room froze for an instant. Not a drill. Those words turned training into reality. Kara's mind shifted, every sense sharpening. She looked around and saw fear in their eyes.